Hey guys, welcome back to the Rambler channel again. As you can tell, we are out here at the airport, so let's see if we can go do some flying today. For the first time in like 2 months, it hasn't been just awful windy. The sun's shining, there's blue skies. It's a little bit cold, it's about 55 degrees outside, but that's warm enough to go fly. And then, like I said, it's not windy today, so hopefully we can get the plane out, get some footage. And I have a new plane I haven't showed you yet and told you about yet, and I've been keeping secrets, and I apologize for that. So here's one that I had that I didn't really get to show you. This is a Zenith 701. I bought this February last year, I think, was when we got this. I don't think I talked about it at all on the channel, unfortunately. I did want to get the GoPro on it and get some flight footage, but never did that either. We had it out at the farm for a while, did some flying with it, took my nieces up in it, really enjoyed it, took my brother up. It was a good little airplane. This is a experimental home-built aircraft, just like the yellow one I had. This was built in, I think the kit was built in 2008 and it was finished in 2012 was when it started flying. So got to fly that for about 20-25 hours. And then I actually sold that one and moved on to the one that I have now, which is a, well, I'll show you in person. So those of you that know, those of you that don't, this is the classic Beechcraft Bonanza. The old famous or infamous, depending on which side you subscribe to, fork-tail Doctor Killer. They got this nickname because of their V-tail. This is an unconventional tail. You're used to seeing 3 control surfaces, back here not 2. This is a rudder slash elevator, or a ruddervator, all mixed into one. It reduces the drag from the aircraft, and so it allows it to fly faster on less horsepower. When these aircraft first went into production in 1947, they were competing with aircraft that had fixed landing gear, fixed pitch propellers instead of constant speed like this one is, and about 160 horsepower. Beechcraft was using these to try and get post-war production going. This fuselage was designed actually in 1946, and they first put the aircraft into production in 1947. It originally had fabric covered control surfaces, and unfortunately when they got rid of the fabric, they went to a titanium skin, a magnesium skin for these surfaces back here. Now the reason that's a problem is because magnesium's not in production anymore, and so when these fail, the aircraft is unfortunately turned into beer cans. This one's a 1949 and 1963 they stretched it. The fuselage got longer, and they did that in order to give a bigger cabin area, larger wing, and a larger engine. What that caused was forces back here that they didn't anticipate in engineering, because they stretched the front of this but they left the mount point the same, and this would begin to vibrate at high speeds. Once you got going too fast or in the wrong flight conditions, the vibrations on the beginning of that leading edge there would cause the tail to rip off of the airplane. So obviously you lose your tail, you lose your airplane. and people were crashing and dying, and this started probably in the mid 60s, early 70s. Because of the price tag on them, although would sound cheap for us today, was a little bit more expensive for people back then, and the only ones that could afford it were the doctors, and so doctors were flying these and getting killed in them, and it earned them the nickname of the fork-tailed doctor killer. Now, I believe in the 90s, might have been late 80s, an engineer came up with a solution. They actually built a cuff that would go over right here and rivet to the skin of the aircraft and reinforce that edge there so it wouldn't vibrate. And that stopped the tails from separating, and they stopped having the structural failures with that. I don't know if you can see this. Can't see it in the viewfinder. So this fuselage was built before all that happened, so I don't have to comply with that, and I don't have the risk of losing my tail. As much of a risk of losing my tail, I should say. This is a good flying airplane though. This one's been upgraded. Originally came from the factory with 185 horsepower and now has 225 horsepower. The propeller is a variable pitch propeller, so I can actually change the angle of this blade while I fly, and what that does is allows me to reduce my RPM but maintain speed, like shifting gears in your car. It gives me better fuel economy at higher speeds. I burn roughly 11 gallons an hour, doing approximately 165 miles an hour. So it's quite fast, quite efficient. This one has additional fuel tanks on the wingtips. They came from the factory holding only 40 gallons of fuel. And even with the smaller engine in there, that only gave them about a 400-mile range, and so usually you're landing about 300, 350 in order to get fuel. But it just had these little fuel tanks here that just takes up this area. Very, very small fuel tank. So a lot of companies started developing aftermarket fuel tanks for the tips. These are the smaller ones. These ones are only 12 gallons a piece. There are sets that are 24 gallons. They're much more round. And even some that actually increase your useful load because they create lift. The tip tank does, and gives you an extra fuel as well. So it almost, the fuel carries its own load, if you will. Well, this one's a 4-passenger airplane. The ones I've had in the past are 2-passenger. And this is one that they almost call a true 4-place, and forgive my mess. The reason it's a true quote-unquote 4-place is because it has the useful load that will carry the weight of 4 people and full fuel. Now with my tip tanks, they add enough weight that with those full I can't hold 4 people, but with just my little main tanks here in the wings, if I only have gas in there, I can actually put 4 people in here. Unlike many aircraft, in fact, Beechcraft that I know of is the only production aircraft that only had one set of controls. Almost every other aircraft in existence, even experimental ones, have controls for both pilot and co-pilot. Now in this case, it's a single pilot aircraft, certified single pilot, which means you don't need 2 people to operate it. But as you've seen in other airplanes, they always have 2 sets of controls here, and that's a lot of different reasons. Pilot gets tired, he can just tell the other person to fly, vice versa. Back before autopilots came into existence, it was nice to be able to just hand control off to somebody else so you could take a quick break. This one only has the single. Now this is called a throw over yoke. So behind the yoke here, there's this lever. Let's see if I can, hang on, let me just put the camera down. This will be easier. You can pull this lever here, and the yoke will actually change places. So now the guy on the other side could fly. So you can do that in the air, but you can't really do instruction in this aircraft because the flight instructor will sit on this side, and he's going to need a set of controls while the guy on the other side's flying. And if the aircraft gets into a situation where it's beyond the student's capabilities, the flight instructor can take over. Now in this aircraft, the flight instructor can't do that because the yoke the throw over process with the yoke is not super simple. So in an emergency situation, the instructor wouldn't be able to just grab that from him. The other thing is, although it has full pedals, they look just like those ones, there's no brakes on this side. Usually you'll push the tops of these and you'll have brakes, but this side is rudder only. You don't have any brake control on this side. So it really limits how much the other person can fly. Now there are mods available. It's about $4,000 to buy a yoke for this that goes to both sides. And there's a little bit of a debate in the Bonanza community on if 2 is better than 1. There are a lot of people who like the 1. There are a lot of people who like the 2. Each person to their own. I do kind of wish I had the dual yoke. Could take family and friends up flying and let them fly the plane while I still have control on my side, and I could also allow some people to take flight instruction in this aircraft. This aircraft is a little bit more complicated to fly. It's a little bit more of a risk. A lot of that comes from not having a rudder. So you do have to be a little bit more careful while you're flying. So it's not really a good beginner's airplane. And honestly, the conventional wisdom says I don't have enough experience to fly it. But I've been flying it for 30 hours. I haven't crashed it yet, so knock on wood. So enough of me talking. Let's see if we can make her make airplane noises.
3, 2, 0 at 1, 0. This
back on the ground, as you can tell by the wind blowing my hair and me walking instead of flying. She's a performer. At one point there, of course I had a tailwind, but nonetheless, my ground speed was 170 knots, and that's how you move. So here's the sad news. I know I just introduced you to this airplane and one other one in this channel that you never got to see. I've had this Bonanza for a year, and like I said, I flew over 30 hours in it, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, but she is going away today, actually. So hopefully, if all the weather works out, the new buyer will be flying in his airplane, and actually we are trading. So we'll possibly introduce you to a third airplane in this video. I haven't decided if I want to do that a separate video yet or not. I'll cut this part out if I do. Bell 407. That's the 1%ers right there. There's this controller out at in New York, and he's a ground traffic controller, so he gives people taxi instructions, taxiing out to runways and stuff. And anytime somebody's going by in a private jet or a private airplane, he always tells them to just follow the 1%er. So I suppose I'm a 1%er. Certainly don't feel that way. I just have this, which is a fantastic aircraft, and again, I truly have enjoyed owning it. Why am I selling it? Well, I don't know. I don't know. The plane this guy has is a Cherokee. It's smaller, it's slower, it's got dual controls in it like I was talking about before. I can rent it out to people that are trying to build time, that are going to flight schools, that don't own an airplane and just want to fly without having to go through the hassle of the clubs and things like that. So I'm still going to do check rides with them just to make sure they can fly. But I mean, a Cherokee is a trainer airplane, so it'll be pretty, I don't want to say hands off, but ideally can make some money off of that. And so the short video I posted the other day, and that's part of what I was going to talk about in there. Like I said, I wasn't sure if he's going to come out today. Weather is good here, but I guess where he's at, weather's not as good, so he's going to have to try and fly out a little later. He was hoping to be here in about an hour, but I don't know if he's left yet. I haven't yet checked to see if he's flown off yet. So I was just going through all that video I just shot, and I guess during my pre-flight crawling up underneath the landing gear, got too close to something, and I got this like black spot on my nose. And while I was flying, I had taken my phone and I was going to shoot a little quick thing for WhatsApp to post, and I saw it and I was like, oh man, I've had that in all these videos, you know, wiped it off real quick. What I didn't notice until just now when I was editing is I had this, I was making out with the landing gear. I'm just sitting here laughing at myself, and I'm like, well, you know what, screw it, whatever. It happens. Yes, I kissed my plane goodnight. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. Hey, so the guy coming out to get my plane or trade me for his plane, he wasn't able to make it because of weather, so unfortunately that didn't work out. Also, it's not really looking good for tomorrow either, so we're going to look at Saturday or maybe Monday or Tuesday next week. So I guess only 2 airplanes this video, and the next video we'll do, you know, I'm trying to decide, like, there's a good museum here, and maybe I should go down there and shoot some stuff in the museum, and maybe 2 videos from now you'll see another new airplane. Also, I don't know what to name that airplane. The green and yellow one we called Kermit, after Kermit the Frog. This one was named Eva, after the flying robot in WALL-E. What should we name the next one? comment your ideas down below. And always, like, share, and subscribe. Tell all your friends about the channel, and we'll see you next time. Thanks again.